Hey, what's up? Welcome to DGenEd. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts and going over some crypto data. So this is, Crypto Corner Sat Stacker for Saturday, June 7th. And the theme for this week's video is going to be higher lows. I'll see about doing a theme every week, but that is really just something that I want to be looking for. I'll be going over that, discussing the 18 different coins I'll be going over in this video. There will be timestamps to them down below if you want to skip ahead to your favorite coin. This is really just going to build upon the thesis that I'll go over here. So it might be nice to just sit back, relax, and watch the entire thing. And just enjoy. And so really just to begin, I'm going to go over just the general thesis over here and some of these memes. I did add this meme over here from last week, which to be honest makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable just because I feel like it's like too much AI, too much a little bit creepy. But this is, the meme of, the two young girls being, excited about something, being impressed by something, whispering to each other. And, what she's saying to this other girl is his Ethereum just hit 5,000. He held from 2025 to 2069. You'll notice that they're not young girls. They are older women now because it's taken so long for ETH to hit 5,000. And so, I just happen to be pretty bullish on Ethereum. I do think that by the end of the year, it could be hitting around $8,000. That is really the basis of the thesis based on this red line that you can see here intersects with the highs from 2021, goes back to the high at the tail end of 2017, just above Ed's head there. You can barely see it. And so that is the pivot line to the upside, which would suggest, give or take around 8,000 by the end of the year, 6,000. I think that would be an excellent, target to hit. But we'll have to see. And the screenshot that I have up here was posted or included in the video that I put out on Easter, which was 420. And I put out this video entitled Happy ETHster, going over my thesis, and that I thought the bottom was in on April 7th, which on that date, this is, I should note, the weekly chart. So we do see the wick down there that was on April 7th across Ethereum, Bitcoin, tons of other cryptos, stock market, whatnot. That was, kind of the selling climax corresponding with Liberation Day. And so on April 7th, I just happened to text a friend, you buying the dip or not looking? And, I don't like to put pressure on the people, so I was not, encouraging of anything like that. But that did happen to be the bottom, so I'm pretty proud of that message. Also, Bitcoin low, according to Coinbase, if you look at the chart, the low for April was $74,000 and 420.69. So I just think that's funny. These, memes, just people trashing Ethereum. And, on April 7th, we were testing this level here right around $1,400, which corresponds with that top in, the end of 2017. Also, we did actually break below this yellow line that I was kind of curious. I was expecting that to hold as support. As if we do look back in time, that was the lows in 2022, the lows over here in 2020. I thought that might be holding up as support, but we broke below it. Looks like it was a fake out break because we are now trading higher right around where the cursor is. But we did pull back to 1,400, being kind of a psychological level, given that, it's a whole $100 number, also corresponding with that pivot high I talked about from 2017, and then going back to the pivot high from 2019, intersecting with the pivot low from 2022. That did intersect with 1,400. So, I feel like the bottom was in, and if you do notice the theme of the video, we have been putting in higher lows. And so I think that was an excellent dip buying opportunity. And I do think that we will be seeing ETH and the crypto markets hitting higher highs later this year, potentially all-time highs. I suspect so, because the all-time high for Ethereum is around 4,800. So if we get to 5,000, by the end of this year, I think that would be, a new all-time high. But I do think that once we do get to that new all-time high, once all-time highs are hit, you tend to hit more all-time highs. So I think we could be seeing 6,000 and, like I said, maybe 8,000 by the end of the year. But, my thesis is really not so much based on the chart here. I mean, that is a part of it, but it's actually just kind of this bullet point list that I have up here. So I wanted to go over that before I get into the specific tickers. And so my thesis, based on these 9 points here, some of them are redundant, but, I haven't changed this. I've only modified it a little bit. Just going to go through these points. And so the first point is that Bitcoin and crypto will top between May and December of 2025, corresponding with the 4-year cycle blow-off top. Quite possible we're in kind of a new regime with the White House embracing crypto and US embracing crypto, stuff like that. It seems, and the SEC being more friendly to them. So, I think that maybe we're in a new regime where we don't see a blow-off top. Also, Wall Street, I should mention, that's a big one with Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. But we are in this window between May and December of 2025. So I do think that we will see a top in this time frame. Maybe we see a pullback beginning of next year, and then we do see a continuation to new highs later next year. I have no idea, but next year would correspond with, basically the beginning of a bear market following a blow-off top. So good to take some risk off the table by the end of the year. Then the second point on here is savings. And so personally, I do have a savings account. I get less than 4% APY on that. Specifically, I have an account with Ally, which is currently 3.6%. There's a link in the description if you guys would like to get that. I believe you'll get maybe a $50 reward. I'll get a $50 reward if you use my link, but no pressure there. It's really, kind of not too exciting percentage there. My idea with this savings, why I'm doing that savings, is because I actually have some debt, 0.3, that is 0 APR until March of 2026. And so I spend debt, and then what I spend that I have in cash, since I've been spending debt, I move that into savings. So I basically earn 4% on, what I spend in that debt, and I keep all of that debt, greater than 100% of it, in savings for that APY. And I should note, too, that I could extend that debt to August or sometime later in 2026 by opening up a different credit card, paying this one off, and then extending that. I have not maxed out this credit card. My score is still good, so I'm not going to do this just yet, but once maybe my credit score starts to turn, a little bit lower than 720, and I am getting close to maxing out this card, then I'd probably just pay that off, get a new credit card, and extend it, so then I have some more flexibility to take advantage of dips like this, which, in all honesty, I didn't use debt to take advantage of that dip. So being responsible, having a strategy here. And so, like I said, 100% of that debt is in savings to earn that APY. But, kind of the purpose of these weekly videos is that I believe I can do better with crypto. And so the remainder of what I have in that savings account, so that's not covering the debt, so the remainder of that would actually be my savings. My goal is to be able to cover 6 months of bills and expenses for 2026. So really after this 4-year cycle blow off top, I want to have 6 months set aside, so maybe I can leave my job, focus more on trading. I don't know. I'll have to assess then. But currently I have less than 6 months of bills and expenses set aside in savings for 2026. And so my idea is that the remainder of that, so what's covering that debt, my savings, I can roll that into crypto for greater than 4% APY. And that is really based on $500 a week DCA, so that's dollar cost averaging, focusing primarily on Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I'm actually going to kind of reconsider some of my positions to factor them into this to account for some of that 6 months of bills so that I would then be more encouraged to take profit by the end of the year. And then, I can have that 6 months plus, set aside. And so anyways, continuing on with the last 2 points, one of them, a very important one, is point 8, that, I don't want to have more FOMO. I don't want to be buying the top when everything's really exciting. I want to be doing it when it's really boring. I want to be doing it when people are posting memes like this, shitting on ETH, when, there's just a lot of upside potential with it. So I'm making these videos, I'm documenting the process of buying the very boring dip, being made fun of for doing it. But I think that it will be paying off by the end of the year. And I think that ETH will be a great performer. But on that note of performers, I must say that I do have more confidence in Bitcoin than alts. And that is really just to say that, if in case I am wrong, and I think that we have to recognize that in any trade, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be exactly right. I am going to be at least partially wrong. And so if I am wrong to the extent that ETH doesn't go up to all-time highs, whether it's 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, whatever it is, if it tanks, let's say next week and doesn't recover until 2069, like what they're suggesting here with this meme, then, that's going to be a problem. But if that does happen, I have a lot more confidence in storing that money in Bitcoin long term than I do with any of these alts. And there is really kind of a gradient there. I have ETH as number 2, which, I've gotten really bullish on lately, really since, April. Started to really get excited about ETH. Then I have Solana on there, which I would say I'd probably maybe move this off the list, but Doge, I do have a notable position in Doge. And so I'm excited about those, but I don't necessarily think that, I want to be storing my money in Doge for retirement. Same with ETH. Don't necessarily want to do that, although I do want to trade these, maybe have a little bit there for the long run. But, Bitcoin is one that, I would hold for retirement. That's kind of my thesis there. And, with that being said, my goal with this $500 a week to accumulate up to 6 months of bills or more than 6 months of bills, that would be great. I don't necessarily want to be thinking about selling that Bitcoin. That's kind of why I split it between Bitcoin and Ethereum. That, my goal would be to sell the ETH, take that profit, but then leave what I buy in Bitcoin there for, retirement. Or maybe, for an insane top where everybody's excited about it and then Jim Cramer flips bullish, then, I maybe would take some profits or something there. But anyways, that's just kind of like the overview of my thesis. I'll just scroll down here because I'll end the video with this. So I'll just set that up. And then now I will move over to the list of the different tokens, the different coins, and I will populate information here. I should note, though, that I do have the risk and quantity blocked out. Don't want to be sharing my position sizes and whatnot. Maybe that influences you. Maybe my positions are smaller than you'd think. Maybe they're larger than you think. So I don't want to have any influence there. You manage your risk in a way that works for you. That's what I'm doing here, making these videos. But I do have my average prices listed here, and we will discover how up or down I am relative to Friday's closing price. So I will be populating the market cap and Friday's closing price here throughout the video as I discuss these tickers. And so Ed is blocking a few of them, so I'm just going to have him step out of the way for a second. But beginning with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and then moving down the list. And these are sorted by, most risk, which would be, that I have the most money in, versus the lowest risk, which I have the least amount of money in. And some of them that are up higher on the list are going to be a lot more risky just because they're very speculative, lower market cap cryptos. And so, that's something that I will discuss in this video, and that, the reality is some of these are probably going to go to zero. Some of these, I might have to accept some big losses on. So that is something to, be keeping in mind. And also to note that on this list, on the risk curve, the relative risk list here, that Aave actually moved down because I wasn't dollar cost averaging that last week, whereas these I was. And so they moved up. Aave moved down. You can see where it was listed last week as number 13, and these were, just one down. They've moved up. And then the other points, what's in white here, those are orders that I placed last week. If they got filled, they're in green. Otherwise, they're dollar cost averages, and they, we're just getting filled on a daily basis. And then the one in yellow here did not get filled, and I will break that down why I did not actually place that order. Not that it didn't get filled, I didn't place it. And that really comes back to the theme of higher lows and managing that risk. I don't want to just be throwing money at all of these just because they're on this table, just because I make these videos. I want to make sure that I have a plan. I want to be, somewhat conservative in the way that I do this. And over the course of the last week, I had not been paid, but I got paid yesterday. So now I feel a little bit more comfortable to maybe be a little bit more aggressive next week. But I also think that, I need to manage that. So I will, talk about that, in this video. But yeah, let's dive into the first one on the list, which is going to be Bitcoin, of course. And yeah, so my average price for Bitcoin is just above $84,000. But let's, move over to populate the market cap as well as the closing price from Friday. And so looking at the market cap here, we can just go over to, let's see, coin market cap. Bitcoin is, of course, the number one token, and I am just going to copy that number and then paste it into here where I have that X, so it divides by, 1 million. And then we have that the market cap of Bitcoin apparently went up $2 trillion. What was it last week? 2.078. And now it's currently a little bit higher. That's surprising. I would have expected it to go down. But yeah, let's look over at the price. Maybe that is one that we will see that it went down. And so looking over at the chart here, we can see the closing price from Friday, June 6th. Got a nice green candle on that day after, the Elon and Trump feud. We'll see what happens with that. I think that was a dip buying opportunity. And actually, I forgot to note some dip buys were filled. So feeling pretty good about that. And also on that note, I do have it in my notebook. I need to make sure I can see that just to kind of compare for this week. And then I will want to be populating anew. Sorry for the paper noise. But I will want to, populate other levels for dip buys, for trims, whatever. Not trimming for Bitcoin, but just thinking about a dip buy level. But anyways, enough rambling there. The closing price for June 6th was 104,397.99. So 104,379.99. Is that what I said? 104,37397. Okay, so, and that, is green. That's actually pretty surprising because it did dip to a low. And with that being said, before I go back over to the chart, just to note that for my P&L, I'm up 24% on my Bitcoin position. That is better than, let's see, that is better than savings. And another thing that I should probably note, something that I should do, is I should make that green because I did have a limit dip buy placed on Bitcoin for $102,000. Last week, I noted that 102 and 98 were dip buy levels that I'd consider, and I did place the order for 102. And that was just, for $20. So basically half of my daily DCA, which is $40, which ends up being, let's see, I think I actually closed my calculator app. So I'm just going to pull that up, drag this over. And so, $40 times 7 days in a week. That represents $280. So that's more than $250, but that's because I want to have a little bit of extra Bitcoin in case I do end up selling for bills and whatnot next year. I will have a little bit remainder to go into retirement type of thing. But yeah, nothing too crazy there, not thousands of dollars or anything like that. But yeah, let's go back over to the chart and kind of think about that. Think about that. Let's see, 102 and $98 level. And so what we can see here on Thursday, the 5th of June, we hit a low of $100,377.01 was the low. So anybody who had limit dip buys at 100,000 got left behind. And maybe I have some stories like that with other tickers, with other coins. But so I think that 100,000 is a level that we're holding above. So I think that's good to pay attention to. But what we do see here is this orange level here, which is, let's see, the 100% Fibonacci extension from this high here to the low that was hit a week ago on Saturday, May 31st, and then up to this high. But what we have seen more recently is a lower low. And so that would actually, or could potentially, be pushing that level down to around $95,000. So maybe that's a dip buy level. But we haven't really bounced, from that. We haven't gotten to a new high. So I don't think that's necessarily a valid level. But what we do have, if we take a step back, is this Fibonacci retracement going from the low that was hit on April 7th up to the high that was hit on May 22nd. And we have this 382. So it's a 38.2% retracement to around just below $98,000. So I would have to say that for this week, I just got to, add to my little list here. I should have done this before, so I apologize about that. But so my addition for Bitcoin, since I did 102 last week, and I think that, we could be going lower, maybe to test that 382. And so I think that $98 would be a good dip buy level. And then beyond that, I guess I will note it here. Maybe I would put 95. But maybe we just wick down to 100 or don't even get to it, and maybe the bottom's already in. And so that's fine. When doing a limit dip buy, I think it's good to not necessarily expect it to be filled. However, what we do notice with the theme being higher lows, I think that's, what I want the theme to be. We want to be looking for higher lows. With Bitcoin, we're currently seeing on the shorter term, seeing lower lows. But if we take a step back, clearly we're seeing higher lows. So this could just be some consolidation before the next, rip your face off rally. So I do think that is possible that, this bottom is in, but also I do think that we could get some more dip buying opportunities, maybe 100,000. But, if I have that 102 that was filled and then I have a 98 that gets filled, or maybe it doesn't get filled, doesn't really matter to me, then the average would be 100,000. So that would be fine. So that's really, kind of my thesis with Bitcoin there. And then my trim level for Bitcoin, I don't have a trim level for Bitcoin, or at least not yet. I would wait towards, October through December for that if it seems like we're getting a blow off top. Time for families to meet together for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and brag about the price of Bitcoin as uncles buy in at the top and they get rugged, stuff like that. And so where I could see Bitcoin going, though, maybe on the short term, is back to 112, basically the tops over here. But I do think that we could be going a little bit higher, maybe up to, let's just adjust this axis so we can see where that is. This red line here is around 115. But I do think that we could be blowing past that. And just to note where those levels come from, so the red line is basically like the wick highs from 2021. That was 2020. Oh, that was 2024. Sorry. December 2024, the wick highs there. And then they do intersect, or that line, I should say, intersects with the November high from 2021. And then, yeah, we have that orange line going back. So yeah, but I think that this could just be really, ripping faces off. I think that we could be seeing, let's see, 120 to 150, 140. And actually, Eric Trump, during the Bitcoin conference, he was asked, where do you see Bitcoin going by the end of the year or by, the time of the next Bitcoin conference? And he responded by saying to the moon. And then this is from Altcoin Daily. Aaron Arnold was following up with that. Like, really? You think the moon? Come on, give me a number. And Eric Trump's response was 170. And I think that's a pretty reasonable target for a high, because I think that, in the last cycle, everybody was saying Bitcoin would get to 100,000, and that didn't happen. So I think that people are being a little bit more conservative. If a Trump is being a little bit more conservative, it makes me feel like, hey, maybe we've got level heads here, and that maybe there's still a lot more upside for Bitcoin. So I actually feel really good about that. I liked his response. I thought that was really good. And so, yeah, what I will be doing is, just the normal $40 daily DCA using Strike. And I should note all these exchanges links are in the description. If you use my link, we both get a little something. If not, no big deal. But I also should note that the majority of my coins, some of them I do have stored on the exchange just because it's a small remainder, or it's a little bit more difficult to store them on the Trezor, like with, let's see, Avalanche down here. It's behind me, so I'll just remove myself for a second. That would be stored with MetaMask, but I don't really know MetaMask that well, so I just leave it stored on Robinhood. But these other ones I store on my Trezor wallets. I have a Trezor Model 1, which is great, but it does not hold either Solana, XRP, or Cardano. So I more recently got a Trezor Safe 3, which does store those tokens, as well as the Trump token here. And yeah, so link there if you want to use it. No kickbacks or anything with that, or a referral, whatever's. But that's the wallet that I use, and I think it's great. But yeah, let's now move on to the next one, which is, the ticker that I really like a lot, the coin I like a lot for this year, and that is Ethereum. Currently, my average is just over 2,000, which maybe that's a little bit surprising because I was really excited about 1,400, but that's actually when I started to get aggressive. So I wasn't getting aggressive, and I've maintained that aggressiveness rather than just, buying a massive amount there, because I was not necessarily expecting to be right about that bottom. But yeah, let's populate some of the data, and then I will discuss kind of the daily DCA, stuff like that. And so Ethereum, let's look over at the market cap. Oh, and actually, before I get into Ethereum, I'm sorry about that. I need to mention something about Bitcoin, which will relate to the other coins on this list, is the CME price for Bitcoin was around 104,600. And, I got that just by looking it up on the chart. And so that is the CME price is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange price that closes at 4 p.m. Central Time, so Chicago, which is going to be 5 p.m. Eastern on Friday. And so that closing price, if you look at the data on, I believe, Coinbase, that would be $104,000, about $600 and some change, So it's quite possible if we do rally up higher than that, which it looks like we are doing for Bitcoin, we might be seeing a pullback to around 104,000, which corresponds with this green line here. So with that being said, maybe we do see some pullbacks in some of these coins. But anyways, like I was saying before, let's move on to the next ticker, which is going to be Ethereum. As I was saying, my average is just above $2,000, but I will get into that when talking about the daily DCAs once we have populated the market cap and looked at the chart. And so Ethereum, probably not surprised to you, is number 2 in the coin market cap listing. And so I'm just going to copy this number and paste it over to here so we can have that and see if the market cap went up or down over the course of last week. And it actually went down a little bit. So last week it was around 306 billion, and now it's around 304. So maybe there's a dip buy discount opportunity that we have recently seen. But let's look over at the chart over here just to get the closing price from Friday. And so the closing price on Friday, June 6th for Ethereum was at $2,478.24. So 247824. 247824. And so we can see that the price went down relative to last week's close, which was 2,500, above 2,500, now below 2,500. But I am still in the green, so I'm up about 19% with that. So feeling good about that. And this is actually the one where I did not get a dip buy fill. So last week I had talked about Ethereum potentially pulling back down to around 2,400, maybe a little bit lower. And so I placed a dip buy order at $2,350 in addition to my $36.25 daily DCA. And the reason why I have that number, if you're curious, is, so that's through Robinhood. And so it ends up like rounding this down for whatever reason. I wish it'd just do 36.25 every day, but it ends up being around 35.90 a day. And so if we do $35.90 each day, multiply that by 7, that's just above $250. So that is, between that and Bitcoin, that's like my $500 weekly DCAing. And so, I do have that, but then I did have this additional $250 dip buy placed at $2,350, which I was wondering, maybe I should bump that up to $2,400. And so let's look at the chart to see if that was close to being hit. And what we will see, unfortunately, and maybe I'm just going to delete this doodle since it's in the way, what we can see is the low, which was actually yesterday on Friday, the 6th. The low was $2,384. So I missed getting filled by $34, but the reality is there's a little bit of a spread. And so that definitely would not have gotten filled if it came down to $2,350 because of that spread. Even with this spread, that I'm talking about, it's possible that 2,400 wouldn't have been filled. So even if I had placed it at 24, I might not have bought the dip. But what's one thing that we're noticing with Ethereum that's a little bit different than Bitcoin? So let's see. Let's just try to have the same time frame on this. So the Ethereum chart is going back to this big green candle, May 13th. Bitcoin, this big green candle, that's May 8th. So let's see. This is May 13th. So these are about lined up there a little bit. That's a little bit off, but whatever. What we can see in this range, Bitcoin put in a lower low, whereas Ethereum put in a higher low. So that's telling me that, Ethereum's showing some relative strength. I like that. And now I'm wondering, should I change my limit dip buy from $2,350 to maybe $24? Or maybe what I want to do is add another limit dip buy. I did just get paid, and so I got a little bit more flexibility for this week. It is a limit dip buy, so it's still just going to be sitting as cash unless it gets filled. But with this more recent trend of higher lows, I don't necessarily think it's going to come back down to 2,400, or if it does, I don't know that I'd get a fill. So maybe what I want to do is place a limit dip buy at $2,450. And so I'm just going to note ETH in my little notebook here. And I'm going to think about that because I would think that that would get filled, and that would get filled aggressively. But if I'm also thinking about the dip buying opportunity that we saw corresponding with Trump and Elon derangement syndrome colliding, maybe that dip buy opportunity is going to leave me behind. And if that's the case, I would have been happy to get $250 worth of Ethereum at 2,400. And so maybe I want to split the difference. Maybe I want to leave my dip buy at 2,350, splitting that difference, arriving at the middle around 24. That would put a dip buy at 2,450. So I'm actually going to note that 2,450. And in my trim column, I was going to write NA, but no, I changed it to 8K because that's kind of my thesis for Ethereum, which I, to be honest, will probably be selling majority of my Ethereum before 8,000, but, just kind of thinking about that thesis. And yeah, so I mean, we do have this yellow line here. That was the low that was hit on May 18th. That was at a price of 23.23. Never going to forget that number. Actually, I will forget that number, but whenever I read it, it will make me smile. And then we can see the low over here from the 6th was 23840 cents. I find it interesting when it's 0 cents. That's odd. Both of these 0 cents. So what would make sense to me is maybe we start to see a trend line like this. And if we are putting in higher lows, then maybe, I don't get a fill quite at 2,400, so maybe 2,450. So I like that, but let's think about that and also just consider, that I probably want this line to be a little bit, let's see, trend line. I just want to make it a little bit thinner right here. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't have to be so bold. Okay, so that's a nice little casual trend line I got there. I do have this range up here that we did break below. Hey, we broke below over here. Broke below the yellow line. That was an excellent dip buying opportunity, a dip buying opportunity of a lifetime. When all the ETH bears are celebrating, they're going to be getting left behind. So yeah, I mean, did dip below that range. Maybe that range is significant. Maybe it's not. To be honest, I might actually no, I'll leave the range there, but I kind of want to change the style of how I draw those ranges. So actually, maybe I just want to delete that, and then I will redraw the range here, just going from the high here, extending this out. I don't know that I can make it parallel exactly, or just a horizontal line. But yeah, got that there, and then kind of extend this down. This is actually, it's just putting too much clutter up there. So what I probably want to do is just not mess with it. Just leave it as it is. And so what we can see, where do we dip to? Right around 2,400. We do see that the 382 from this Fibonacci retracement going from the low over here. And I'm actually just going to delete that range because I don't need that anymore. So the low over here, actually, if I don't need it anymore, I'm not even paying attention. It doesn't matter. So that low from April 30th going up to the high from over here, you just see the point right here. That 382 was 2384.49. Pretty remarkable that the low was 49 cents lower than that level. So pretty crazy there. Coincidence, I imagine. But yeah, I think that this could be, a bull flag. And with that bull flag, just like over here, got to move to the upside. I think that we could be seeing a move to the upside. So this Fibonacci extension is based on the low over here from April. Well, I guess that was, this is weird. I thought the low was not on April 7th, which was at 1411. We got a lower low, sub 14, on April 9th. So I guess I should have corrected that in my intro. I will have to do that next week. But yeah, from that low, test of 14, and then moving up to the high here, and then pulling back to, where did I pull that back to? This yellow line. So maybe that happens. That yellow line is at 23.23. Maybe it doesn't happen. I'll just leave it up there. That price target is around $3,400. But if I do adjust this, just out of curiosity to the lows that we saw, that would actually push it a little bit higher. So this is a little bit more conservative to have it to that lower level. So yeah, I like a dip buy at 24.50, a dip buy at 23.50, which would put the average at 2,400. And that will be seen as a great opportunity, just like over here, if we do head up into the 3,000s. So I like that. And so what I am probably going to do is this, how do I want to denote this? I think that's an important point. I think the way that I want to denote this is rather than a dip buy of 250 plus 250 or a dip buy of 500, maybe I want to do this as times 2. And then I can, let's see, hopefully this doesn't, still can see the Trezor IO over there. So I think that is all right. And to note what I have to, be paying attention to, I have to, do something with this. I will make that green because it needs some attention. Whereas the yellow down below means that it wasn't filled. And so it's just something that, I want to consider. So green, I need to add that additional $250 dip buy there. So I'm excited about that. A little bit nervous though, because that is, a more aggressive buying than I have been doing. And that would be raising my average, especially, with price right around that level. That was closing price from yesterday though. But yeah, I'd be happy to, be a little bit more aggressive with that. But anyways, let's now move on to the next one, which is going to be Dogecoin, ticker symbol DOGE. So my average is right around 17.4 cents. It's gone up a little bit because I've been doing dollar daily DCAs above my average. But I also did do a limit dip buy at my average, $5, so nothing too crazy. But that did get filled. So that's why it's in white, because it was executed there. And actually maybe what I want to do is denote these as yellow because they need my attention. And that's what I will do. So yellow there, because this one that was filled, now it needs my attention. I need to add another one, $5, or maybe, I want to do $7. I'm not really sure. Let's first look over at, the market cap and the price of Bitcoin, or of Dogecoin, and then, kind of evaluate how do I want to do that dip buy. Maybe still doing the $1 DCA. I'm not sure. Let's think about that. But yeah, so coming over here, looking at coin market cap, Dogecoin number 8, which you can't see because Ed's in the way. So Dogecoin right there, number 8 as far as coin market cap goes. And that market cap is around $27.5 billion. So let's just paste that over here. And it did come down a little bit from last week. It was at 28.7. Now it's at 27.5. Down a little bit, dip buying opportunity potentially. And so now let's look over at the price. Just going to go back to the ETH chart and then type in Doge. And the one that I've been looking at here is from Binance, but looking at it with the US dollar, I believe. Hopefully, yes, this does look right. Same kind of style here. And so what we see from this Fibonacci retracement, we did pull back to the 618, and that is going to be based on, the move from the low here up to the high here. You just see the dot for it. Let's see, over here in this corner, but that should be lined up with the top over there. And so we have the 618 at 17.98 cents. We dipped below that, hitting a low on the 5th of 16.75 cents, but the closing price for yesterday, Friday, June 6th, was 17.97. So let's put that over here, 17.97. And now I'm up only 3%. So yeah, that's I'm still up though, not better than savings. But I think I'm still going to do the $1 daily DCA. I think that's fine. And do I want to do a $5 DCA? Yeah, because I'm still doing this DCA, $1, $5, that would just be an extra bonus. So I think that's fine. Where do I want the dip buy level to be? Let's consider that. We do have higher lows here on the bigger picture. But in the shorter term, we do have lower highs. We haven't broken that trend. We haven't gone to higher highs. So I think this still could be coming lower, maybe coming down to that 786, which is just shy of 16 cents, around 15.81. And so with that being said, maybe the lows over here, those are right around 17 cents. Maybe we do go a little bit lower. Maybe we don't. I don't know. Maybe we're putting in higher lows now. Maybe we break this trend. Maybe. It doesn't really matter. I like Dogecoin, so I'd be happy to dip buy, even if it's at my average, and I will be doing the daily DCA. So yeah, I think that for Dogecoin, just putting this in my notebook, I think the dip buy would be, which is actually now slightly below my average, would be at 17.4 cents because my average is 17.41 cents. So I would then be getting my average down with a $5 dip buy at that level, continuing with the daily DCAs of $1. And then also I should note, what will be my take profit level? Hypothetically, that would be, $1. But maybe we don't get there by the end of the year, and then I would take profits, whenever it seems like we're forming a top. But yeah, let's see, higher lows, like I was saying, we do have decreasing volume as prices coming down. So I do think that is good. And relative to the low over here, we're putting in a higher low. When we actually have a lower low in the RSI, just ever so slightly. And so that is going to be, that would be hidden bullish divergence. Bullish divergence would be lower lows in the stock price, higher lows in the RSI. And so we're not seeing that, but we are seeing a little bit of hidden bullish divergence. And so maybe this starts to rip faces off. Who knows? And with that being said, I do have this 100% Fibonacci extension up here. That's around 31.44 cents. But as you can see where those dots are, where those circles are, that came back to this level here, which I'm just going to delete that because we've already broken below it. I don't think it's going to be that useful. And actually, I just want to make sure I'm highlighting the correct thing. Yep, there we go. So with that being said, I should adjust this actually to the low that we just recently saw. And then that would give us a better price target right around 30 cents, just shy of 30 cents at 29.68 cents. That seems like, a reasonable level to be able to trim at. For me personally, I don't want to trim Doge. I want more. So I'm not going to be doing that, but that is, something to think about, that maybe we find some resistance around 30 cents, which makes sense given that it's a whole 10-cent level, 3 dimes, 1 quarter, 1 nickel, or if you want to go crazy, 30 pennies. And that, let's see, going across right around the bottoms over here. So I could see that acting as some resistance. Makes sense. Just a little bit lower than that. Around 27, 28 cents was tops over here. So yeah, I think that we could be seeing some resistance if we do start to get above the highs that we were hitting on May 11th, which was around 26 cents, just shy of 26 cents. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of potential there, but really, this is one where it's a kind of a boring daily DCA for me. Nothing too exciting there. But yeah, excuse me for the neck crack. I'm just going to drink some water, and then we'll move on to the next ticker, or the next coin, I guess I should say. All right. And so the next one on the list is going to be iExec, which is ticker symbol RLC. This one is very risky, very speculative. I wish it was not so high on the risk list, but it is what it is. Over the past couple weeks, I've been contemplating doing a $200 dip buy. And on the 5th, I was looking at the chart. I was considering it, also considering it with Ondo, and recognizing that, the Trump Elon feud might be a great dip buying opportunity. But this is speculative. It's risky. Maybe I want to wait and see what happens. And so I have not bought a $200 dip buy because I kind of want to see what's going on with the chart. And the big reason for that is because of the market cap of this, because it just seems really risky. And so the market cap for iExec, I think it's actually gone up from last week. And maybe it would be a good idea. I'm not going to, but maybe it would be a good idea to note what number size market cap it is. But what we can see is the market cap is $76 million. So it's super small. And if I do paste that over here, we can see 76 million, and last week it was 75 million, so it's actually gone up. That's pretty surprising. And then let's look at the price, the current price for RLC USD, US dollar on Coinbase. So let's look at that. And so the closing price on June 6th was $1.77. So $1.77. And so that had come down following last week, which was $1.03, almost 4 cents. And that puts me at negative 58% with this. And the reason why, you want to be buying when things are dipping. But the reason why I was reluctant to is because I was waiting for my paycheck and I didn't want to be, actually I needed to wait for my paycheck to be able to, I had $100 and change, so I could have done an Ondo dip buy. But I, was also looking at RLC. Maybe I want to do a dip buy with that. I don't know. I didn't, and I was contemplating doing a dip buy before making this video. I did not. And the reason for that is because I already have too much in it. It's too high up on this list. At least these three should be higher than that. Others you could argue are speculative, but I think those Solana, XRP, and Cardano would be higher up. I think that makes sense. It's reasonable. RLC, very small market cap, very risky. And the reason why I didn't is because we actually saw a lower low being formed. And so, with that low that we hit on June 5th during the little feud, that was 94.65 cents. The lows over here was 95.41 cents. So maybe it's a fake out breakout or fake out breakdown, fake out. That this is an excellent dip buying opportunity. But what I see that stands out to me trying to get better at Wyckoff analysis is that over here, when we're hitting that basically the same level, we see lower volume than over here. And so what that tells me is that this has not, reached, complete exhaustion or anything. That there are still, people wanting to buy the dip here. There are still people willing to sell here. What we need to see is lower volume before we can get a rally. In my view, maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm learning Wyckoff, so I'm not the best at it, kind of the volume analysis. But I think that this could potentially be going lower. And so maybe I just want to wait on that. So for me, I guess, what would be a dip buy level for this that I feel a little bit more comfortable with? It's also like the theme, I'll talk about this with Ondo, but you're never going to get the exact bottom. You're never going to get the exact top. And so you have to kind of work with what you're given. And so RLC, I had a thesis up here that it was going to hold this trend line. It then broke down. My thesis is invalid. Maybe this is a dip buying opportunity and we break back above that. Then, hey, maybe we've reclaimed my thesis and then I have something to work with. but also maybe not. Maybe this continues lower. And so my thesis, my level, I guess, for RLC, last week it was $1. I didn't do it. And it's now trading above $1 at 106. So I don't know, maybe my level is still $1 for an addition, but I want to see a sign that we're putting in a higher low. Because if the low over here on the 5th was sub $1, 94.65 cents, we could still hit $1 again, but then that'd be a higher low. We haven't seen that yet. I could see this continuing to go lower. So I'm just going to chill. This is too risky for me to be more aggressive with it. So I am chilling, at, my average. I didn't add last week. Maybe I'll regret it. I imagine I will. I imagine I missed a dip there, but it's too risky. So I've got to manage that. And so I'm proud of myself for exercising that discipline. I was planning on just doing Ondo RLC dip buy right before making this video. I didn't do that with RLC. So maybe I'll regret that. But, basically, I'm always going to regret getting into RLC at this point. Maybe later, I won't. But thinking about that, I'm still just going to leave the $200 potential dip buy, and that would be around $1. Something I need to consider. But what's, a trim level? Where could this be trimming at? So I guess, it's probably going to correspond with my average, 238. And what was my trim level from last week? Yep, 238. So it's basically, I just want to trim my position size down so it's not so high on the risk list. And then when it does pull back below my average, then I can nibble back in, get a little bit more, and then, maybe repeat the process, but then taking profits rather than just taking out at break even. And so with that being said, my trim level is still going to be 238. So that is something for me to be keeping in mind. But where could this be going? I see this going up to like 230, that downtrending level, or maybe up to here around 290. But, I just want to be trimming more aggressively at break even because I've been holding the bag for a while. Been trying to average down, but just don't want to be exposing myself to too much more risk. And so maybe this is the selling climax. That's why there's so much volume here. Because we have seen diminishing volume and then that spikes up. So I don't really know. I need to read more about Wyckoff to really, understand that or to really have a statement on it. So just trimming on the way up. But let's come back to the list over here to go over the next one, which is going to be Ethereum Classic. And so my average for that is 22.28. I am down a little bit, but not 100%. So let's populate the data over here before we start to look at the numbers there. And so the market cap for Ethereum Classic, it's number 37 for CoinMarketCap. And that market cap is around, let's see, $2.6 billion. So let's just paste that here. And so that's up, from last week. So let's see, 2.6 here, just shy of 2.6 last week. So it's gone up a little bit. So that's good. But let's look at the price of Ethereum Classic, US dollar Coinbase. Let's look over there. And so we got, what's this red line here? We did, that's okay. So we got this Fibonacci retracement, got multiple Fibonacci retracements. Kind of broke below this one. I might actually delete that. It's a shorter time frame fib level, so I'll delete that. But actually, first thing, I don't want to be going over levels here. I just want to get the closing price from June 6th, which was 1674. So 1674. So I'm down about 25%. And so with that being said, I'm just going to be doing my daily DCA. $3 ends up being about one Ethereum Classic over the course of the week. If I pull up the calculator, $3. Wait, no, not that. Let's see. let's see, how do I want to do this? Mental math, struggling. So yeah, $3 over the course of 7 days is 21 bucks. So that's more than one Ethereum Classic over the course of the week. But if I were to do $2 every day, that's 14 bucks. It's less than one Ethereum Classic. So I'm just going to leave it at $3. I think that's fine. It's a little more aggressive than the other ones here, but that's fine. Don't need to stress about it. And yeah, so $3, accumulating there. But then I'll also want to, consider trim levels and stuff. I'll want to get more aggressive with that. But let's look at this. So we've got this, Fibonacci retracement here going from the low over here up to that high, basically the yellow line here. And those are the highs formed over here. And so we have pulled back to the, 50% retracement around 1683. We did break a little bit lower than that. And so I could see it, coming down to the 618, which is around 1585 or 16 bucks. I could see that we have been seeing lower lows formed as well as lower highs. We haven't broken that trend. Once we start to put in higher highs, then, I think that maybe we're starting to move to the upside. But for now, I think this could still be pulling back. I'm not going to have a dip buy placed on this because I'm just doing more aggressive daily DCAs. So I'm fine with that, as this comes down. But let's say, hypothetically, if I were to do a more aggressive dip buy, what did I have listed for last week? 16. What would I say for this week? I would also say 16. The low that we saw June 5th was 1616. So almost to 16. Lots of 16s there. And so for this week, I'm not going to place any orders to dip buy, but I'm just going to note that I think that 16, is an intriguing level there. But then what is a good level to perhaps exit at, or trim at, I should say, not exit, trim. So my average is 22.28 last week. I had the trim level at 24, which is above that. I have a little bit more confidence in, Ethereum Classic than I do with RLC. I think that makes sense. And so why 24 though? Okay, so up here, but I'm going to want to adjust that a little bit because we did go to a lower low. And so I'll just pull that down to here, being approximate, and actually I want to have that lined up with that low, but into the future so we can, see it as a target for a later date corresponding with that low from June 5th. And so that would be around 24.42. It was previously at 24.74. So yeah, I'm just going to lower that back down to 24.42. And I think that, a good trim level. And actually, this is one that, I can have an alert on it too. So I think that's good. But if this does go up to 24, that's a good trim level. And so I think that I should have an alert. And so I'm just going to note alert in my notebook and put a box around it so it stands out to me. So yeah, I think that's something there. But yeah, it's higher up on the risk curve, on the risk list, I should say. It's not really a curve. So maybe I want to move that down, trim more aggressively when we do get back up there. So that is something for me to consider. And there's actually, I should note this, Doge, RLC, as well as Ethereum Classic. Those are all ones that I could factor into, like the budget for the 6 months of next year. If I'm taking profits or trimming at break even, whatever. So that's something that I think should, factor into that. And yeah, now let's go into the next one, which I'm really excited about this one. Always usually pretty excited about Ondo, ticker symbol OND. I did add to it just before making this video. I was considering buying the dip on the 5th, but it would have been like the last dip buy that I was able to do before getting paid on Friday. And I didn't know that I wanted to spread myself so thin because maybe it continues going down and then I got my hands tied until I get that paycheck. And so I just sat in my hands and I was not planning on buying before making this video. But then I thought, well, I talked about dip buying RLC. I had a thesis for why it was not a good idea because we put in a lower low. But with Ondo, did we put in a lower low? Maybe I wanted to dip buy because we had put in a lower low. Never going to get the exact bottom. And so I did add $100, getting my average now down below $1. So that's nice. I'm excited about that. But yeah, let's populate the market cap data and the price data before I get into, the nitty gritty and all that and stuff. And so Ondo here, just below Ethereum Classic, is number 38 on the list. About 2.6 billion, just like Ethereum Classic, so nothing too crazy there. And just going to populate that. And so that actually went up just like Ethereum Classic over the past week. That was 2.6 billion. Now it's still 2.6 billion, so nothing too different. But then let's look over at the price here from yesterday for Ondo. Right here, USD or US dollar on Coinbase. And so what was the closing price for June 6th? That was 80,587. So 80,587. Okay. Down 18%. And then the price did go down over the course of the past week. And why did I decide to dip buy? The reason why is because, I guess on the shorter term, we have put in lower lows. But on the longer term, and maybe I actually want to do a comparison with RLC, if I'm being completely fair. RLC, and then let's just go back to, this is the lows from April 7th. So RLC, the lows from April 7th. No, let's see. The low there was 95.41. Yeah, we went lower. So that's kind of, what I'm thinking. Higher lows here in Ondo. So this is looking better than, RLC. So that is why I decided to dip buy. Also, we bounced, as you can see, from the 786 here, around 76.514 cents. 76.514 cents, having hit a low on the 5th of 75.811 cents, so being 75.811, so just below that 786, just piercing that level. So I think that's kind of nice. Dip buy levels for this. What did I say for last week for Ondo? 84 cents. Interestingly, that's what the price that I bought it at. But I should note that on Thursday, I guess, on the 5th, I was looking at the chart and I saw, the low, I was looking at it on Coinbase. And so that, at least the way that I was looking at it, it rounds to the nearest penny. 76 cents was the low. Here it says 75.811 cents. So I see 76 cents. And it's bouncing up to 78. And I'm thinking I should execute, I should buy. But maybe it goes lower and I don't have cash to add if it goes lower. And the reality is you're never going to buy the exact bottom. You're never going to sell the exact top. So I waited. With the week ending, having just gotten paid, hey, I'll put $100 into Ondo. That's fine. I can do that. I can manage it. But if it does come back to over here, I think that's another addition level. 84 cents. What's it trading at now? 83. So maybe what I want to do, maybe split the difference approximately. Maybe just say 80 cents. And this is for Ondo. And so 80 cents. Maybe that's a dip by a level. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it goes lower. But, if I was dip buying at 84 cents to get my average down below $1, I feel good about that. I'm happy about that. The end result is good. I have more. My average is lower. I like that. But maybe it does go lower. I can casually add. So that's not a big deal. So with that being said, maybe I want to change this back to being yellow. I want to consider doing another $100 dip buy, keeping an eye out for 80 cents. But yeah, thinking about that, targets to the upside. Last week, I had noted that for Ondo, I had listed it as 103 because that was my average. Now my average is 98 cents. But then I adjusted it to 120, probably corresponding with this 100% Fibonacci extension, which I am going to need to adjust. But that's at like 125, 126, somewhere around there. Just wanting to trim it a little bit below to be a little bit safe in case we don't get up there. But with that being said, I do need to adjust this low point here because we did go lower down to around 76 cents. So with that adjusted, what is that level? Now 123, still above 120. So I still think that 120 is a good level to potentially trim at. So I like that. And that would be then more than a 20% gain for me if I did trim with an average at 98 cents up to 120, 20%. That is better than savings. So I would feel good about that. I would be all right with that. And I'd still have some to hold. I don't know that I'd hodl it, but I'd, hold it for the end of the year. Until October, December, I would think about exiting around then. But maybe I'd hold some for the longer term, trim down to a smaller position. I don't really know. But yeah, maybe for next week, I would consider doing another $100 dip buy. But yeah, now let's continue on to the next one on the list, which is going to be Litecoin, ticker symbol LTC. And so my average for this one is just below $100. So happy about that. Over the past week, I have been doing $1 daily DCAs with Robinhood. So really, not too exciting, but it's something. And it does add up over the course of 100 days. I'll have another Litecoin. So that's something. But yeah, let's look over at the coin market cap for Litecoin. Right here is number 21, $6.7 billion market cap. So just type that over here. And that did go up over the course of the past week. I was at 6.6 billion, and now it's at 6.7 billion. So looking okay there. And then looking at the price for Litecoin USD, US dollar on Coinbase. And so the closing price for yesterday, Friday, June 6th, was at 87.35. 87.35. Okay, so 87.35. And that's up, but I'm down 13% on that. It's not so bad. And kind of the rule that I'm thinking for these daily DCAs, if it's sub 10%, then I just do $1 DCA. If it's less than that, maybe I'd cool off. Or if it's less than that, like if it's 5%, maybe I just do a limit dip buy, something like that. So I'm probably going to still do the $1 daily DCA, but since this is only down 13%, maybe I'd cool off. It's also higher up on the list. So just because every day I update spreadsheets, and the more that I do daily DCAs, the more crap I got to add to it. So maybe this is one that I want to consider not doing that because it's higher up on the list. I've got more of it than down below. So maybe I want to chill with that. I will think about it. But yeah, let's look at the chart. What is a dip buy level? Maybe this is one that I just want to place a dip buy at. And so what we can see is that from the, April 7th lows, which is actually surprising that Ethereum was low on the 9th, but whatever. Oh yeah, Bitcoin would have been low on the low was on the 7th. Yeah, Ethereum's low was on the 9th. Okay, so that's what it is. Whatever. Litecoin's low was on April 7th. We've put in higher lows, so that's looking good. From this retracement, we have come down to the 50% retracement, tested that, but maybe it comes down, and that's at $85, $85.10. But maybe we come down a little bit lower to the 618, and that will be right around $80, that yellow line there. Let's see what I have noted for last week's edition level, $80. maybe it comes down to that. And so I'm just going to add it onto my little list. Litecoin, $80, dip buy level. So maybe that's one I want to do a dip buy at and not do a daily dollar DCA. I think that's kind of reasonable. Yeah, but what's a trim level? If this comes down to 80, that's great. Also, corresponding with the highs over here, so it could be support, makes sense. But if this goes higher, where could that be going to? I have here 127 as that 100% extension. I am going to have to adjust that. From last week, I have 120 as the trim level. But let's see if I just zoom in here so we can see that level up there. And I zoom in so I can adjust this little circle to correspond with the lows that we saw on the 5th. That would suggest upside to around 125.56, whereas before it was 127.02. So 125, that's fine. Trim level would be 120. So I'm just going to leave that as is. And that is also one that I can put an alert on it. Because I generally do a lot of my stock trading in Webull, and I do have some cryptos that I watch in there. I can have an alert for if that does go up to 120. And I can also do that for Doge if it goes up to $1. So maybe I want to do that. In Ethereum, I can also do that for 8,000, So I've got all that noted. And so what I want to do, I think rather than doing a $1 daily DCA, I need to cancel that. And I need to do a $7 dip buy. So that would be basically $1 a day, but on a dip. So I need to adjust that. I need to place that. And that would be at $80. So, okay, I feel good about that. And, yep, I'm just going to have another sip of water before continuing on to the next one, which is going to be Solana, ticker symbol SOL. This is one where I did get a dip buy on it on the 5th, I believe, at $7. That was my daily, or not my daily dip buy, that was my dip buy over the course of 1 week, adds up to a daily $1 dip buy. So I feel good about that. I believe I got my average down a little bit as a result. So let's see, last week it was 49.67. Now it's 49.65. Yay, 2 pennies down. It's not nothing. But yeah, let's check out the market cap for Solana. It's going to be like number 6 or something. Wow, I guessed right. Number 6 market cap, 79 billion. Oops. Copy that number to paste over here. And we can see that actually came down a little bit. Not surprising. I got a dip buy on it. So last week it was 81 billion market cap. Now it's 79 billion market cap. And we can look over at the price, which I imagine will be down relative to last week's Friday. Let's look at this week's Friday. And so I want to get the data from Coinbase, US dollar. And so we can see here that the closing price on Friday the 6th was 147.96. So 147.96. And that came down over the course of the past week. Not surprising. And is it now below my average? I'm down 1% on that. So I think for this, I want to do, a $7 dip buy. So I'm going to need to place that. And I'll probably want to do that 5% below my average. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what makes sense. What makes sense. And so last week, my dip buy was for 149. And we hit a low on the 5th of 141.53, testing over here the 50% retracement. Hey, And maybe we could go a little bit lower to like 130. And so since that did hit a low of 141.53, maybe it would retest that again. Maybe it'd put in a higher low though, 141.53. Maybe I want to do 145. Man, I don't know. Maybe 142. I need to think about this a little bit. 142. Because 142, if it were to get filled, that would then be suggesting a lower low. But yeah, I mean, if this is a dip buy, I don't need to get super aggressive with it. Of the three, Solana, XRP, and Cardano, Solana is highest up on the list. So maybe I don't want to be so aggressive with this. And maybe I do want to do a dip buy. Maybe we pierce this level, 141. I'll do 142 because maybe we respect that level. Maybe we don't go lower. And so I would say 142. That is lowering my average more. That is lowering the buy more. But maybe it comes down to here. But maybe 140. I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to do 142 and I'll leave it at that. And so now let's think about, though, some levels to the upside. Where could this be going? We can see that this doodle that I have here did not play out. Unfortunately, we are now below this trend line resistance. So that's a little bit disappointing. But if we take a step back, we can see this 100% Fibonacci extension, which I am going to have to adjust. But that is at 243.86. And so my trim level is at 240, just below that. But then if I do, select that, do zoom in here to move this dot down to that low, that would suggest 233. So maybe I actually want to adjust the trim level to be at 230. I think that's okay. Sol, I think I can put an alert on it in Webull. So I might try to do that. But yeah, 230, maybe bump into some resistance there. It does look like that was kind of the consolidation lows over here. So that would make sense for that to be acting as some resistance. People expecting, 250, stuff like that, but we don't make it all the way there. And 263 being around, the highs here acted as resistance there. And I think that this is actually kind of a nice psychological example of you have these highs put in around 263.50, and then we go higher, we wick higher than that, while we have a little bit of bearish divergence, so higher highs, lower highs in the RSI. And so going higher than that high, people say, oh, it's going to the moon now, but then it doesn't, and it pulls back. So I think that's kind of an interesting example there. But yeah, I think for this $7 dip buy, and that would be at 142. And then after that, I'd probably just start doing a $1 daily DCAs. So I think that's fine. That makes sense. I feel good about that. Getting the average down or just chilling, one or the other. And so the next one on the list is going to be XRP, ticker symbol. Believe it or not, XRP, also known as Ripple, so let's look at the market cap there for that. This is one, though, however, I should note that I didn't get the dip buy fill at. We will talk about that in a minute, but let's first get that market cap data populated. XRP is the number 4 on the list, $128 billion market cap. And so that is, a little bit more notable than Solana, and that actually went up over the past week. If we do look back from the prior week, 127, now 128. So hey, up a little bit. Let's look at that price though. XRP. This is going to be US dollar on Coinbase is what we want. And so what we can see here, the closing price for June 6th was 216.15. So 216.15. Down 6% on this. And yeah, the dip buy was not filled. What did I note as the dip buy level, the ad level for last week? I did 202. What was the low? The low on the 5th was 206. Yeah, that's a little bit disappointing. Current price is at 217.81. That is below my average. So maybe with this, I want to be doing daily DCAs. I don't know. I think I probably should. I think I probably should do daily DCAs. But I can just leave that dip buy up there. And so what I'd probably want to do is, $1 plus that $7 dip buy. Just leave that alone. But then I'm going to make that yellow because I need to add that $1 dip buy. Because I'm down 6% and XRP, Solana, Cardano, those are ones I have a little bit more confidence in with these altcoins. So I'd be fine with $1 DCA with that over the course of the next week. But, let's note the dip buy levels, I'm just going to leave that one. But yeah, that would really be corresponding with basically the 618 here. So this Fibonacci retracement, the high over here corresponding with the tops over here, and that's low from April 7th. So we did break below the 50%. Maybe we get down to the 618, which would be around 101.22. That would correspond, I assume, with a fill of 202, which is what I had for last week. So that would be the dip buy level. So that's interesting. And now let's see where this could be going to the upside at trim level. This is, based on a low that we broke below. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit, corresponding with the lows that we hit on the 5th. And that's going to be around 310.57. I have it marked as a trim level at 3. Makes sense, still below that level. So 3, and I'm not actually sure that I can add this to Webull for an alert, but maybe I can. I put a question mark in it for me to add that alert. $3, no to trim at. If that does happen, and by no to trim at, that would mean, maybe I have some limits placed to trim there, but maybe I don't, and maybe I have to move some out of my storage onto the exchange so I could then trim. So that is kind of, what I'm thinking about with that. But yeah, didn't add to it last week, sadly, but I'm just going to leave that there. $1 DCA, I think that's fine. And then so the next one on the list is going to be Cardano, ticker symbol ADA. Did get a dip buy fill, $7 last week. My average looks like it's 72 cents. Let's look at the current market cap and Friday's close. So Cardano, this is number 10 on CoinMarketCap, 23 billion. Let's copy that number over, paste it here. And that did go down over the course of the past week. Not really too surprising, but let's see what happened with the price. So for Cardano, oops, not ARA, ARDA, ADA, ADA, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Futures, I don't want that. US dollar Coinbase, that's what I want. All right, so what we can see here is the closing price from June 6th, so on Friday. That was 65.59 cents. So 65.59 cents. Down 9% on that. And let's see, if my average is 72 cents, what's it trading around? 66 cents. So for this one, what I probably want to do is just $1 daily DCA. No problem there. And so I'll just copy this, paste it up there. So I'm not going to be doing a dip buy. I'll mark that as yellow because I need to place that order. Because, yeah, I'm fine with that. And, yeah, Solana is just not low enough. I need to get that dip buy for there. So 72 cents, my average down 9%. Let's look at, what a potential dip buy level could be for Cardano. I had it at 65 cents last week, and we hit a low on the 5th of 61.9 cents. So that order was obviously filled. But where could the next level to the downside be? So I have 618 at about 65 cents. That's why I had my order at, 65 cents filled. The next level down, that is going to be the 786 at around 60 cents. That looks like it's at 58.7 cents. So yeah, I would say, let's see, what was the low? What did I say? 61.9. I would say the dip buy level is at 60 cents. Okay. And then the upside target, I had it marked around $1. And my limit, or not limit sell, but my trim level was $1. I think that makes sense, but I am going to have to adjust this extension because we did hit a lower low, and that would correspond with price getting up to around 97 cents. So maybe actually a trim level would be 95 cents. That seems fine. That seems reasonable. Just below that 100% extension at 97.13, being approximate, so let's just say 97 cents. So yeah, I do have that, and I can put some alerts on that. And I've been writing alert, but I should write alerts plural, so I have alerts to the upside and the downside. And I can put this one, oops, I'm spelling alerts wrong. I can put this one on in Coinbase. So I will do that just so I'm aware. But a lot of these, for the ones that I still have, my basically the remainder, what I've been adding beyond my, target position size, I have been placing limits on a weekly basis. So that would then be trimming at that level without having to think about it. And so with that being said, let's come back here. Dollar DCA, I think that's fine. Now let's look over to the next one on the list. This is going to be the official Trump coin. Lots of drama last week, so I don't know how I feel about this one anymore. I'm just kidding. I think it's all fun. You gotta have fun with it. Can't take yourself too seriously, and I definitely don't. Have been doing dollar DCA with Trump over the past week. My average is around $13.14. I'm in the red, I know that, but not 100% in the red, so we'll have to consider it. But first, let's look over at the Trump coin market cap, which, where is it? Maybe it got, whoa. Trump right here. Okay, I was like, maybe it got removed, all this drama. Number 45 on the list, corresponding with his first term. And this is a $2 billion market cap. So let's just populate that over here. And that did go down over the course of the past week. Not surprising because of all of that drama, Who needs it, to be honest? Who needs it? Trump USD, Trump US dollar on Coinbase. So let's consider that. This doodle did not play out, so I'm going to delete that. But what we really want to know is, the price from Friday, the closing price from Friday, which was 10.12. So let's populate that here. Down 23%, so not feeling so good about that. But I think I might want to continue doing the $1 daily DCA, but maybe not. I don't want to be doing all of these. Some of these, I don't think I will, but yeah, let's think about the trim levels and stuff, and the dip buy levels, if there were to be one. And maybe I want to do a dip buy level for this. I don't know. Just do it one and done, so it's not just daily DCAs, because that gets tiring. I don't know. Let's think about it, though. So this, looking at the chart here, we do have this Fibonacci retracement going from the low up to, the highs over here, this high. And we did break down below the 50%, down below the 618, currently trading below the 618. And so the next, level is going to be, and maybe I want to adjust the settings on this. So we see, where do we see the numbers? I see them on text center middle, left, labels left. So we can see that a little bit clearer. I think it's maybe a little bit better. And the 786 is around $9.15. What was the low on the 5th? 937. What did I have for a dip buy level last week? 1069. Definitely broke below that. Maybe this is one that I want to consider doing a limit dip buy on because it's higher on the list, but it's, pretty speculative in that sense. So maybe I want to do a limit dip buy. What's it trading at now? 1025. Maybe I want to do a limit dip buy at 950. I had 1069 last week. I'm just thinking about this. Well, let's see. 1069 corresponding with approximately 618 there, 1070. That would have gotten filled. But I wouldn't have been daily DCAing with these lows here. So, yeah, what's a dip buy level for this? I do have a 915 here, so maybe I want to do 969. Have fun with it, maybe, I think. You've got to have fun. That's like the theme. So 969, I think that's a dip buy. So coming back to this, I don't want to be going too crazy. And this is higher up on the list than these other speculative ones, so I think it's fine to wait for the dip buy. So that would be like a $7 dip buy to cover the week. That's fine. Need to place that. Pay attention to it. Okay, but then where are some trim levels? Last week, I had a trim level, I imagine, let's see, around 20, 19. So just below this 100% extension, but I got to adjust that because we did go lower. So from that, just extending it down a little bit, pulling it down a little bit more, 1866. So maybe a trim level, adjust that down, rounding down from 1866 to 18. I don't think I can have an alert on that, but I can place limits. So, yeah, I think that's fine. I think it's fine. Don't need to be so aggressive. And that's one where I can just do a limit dip buy. I think that is fine. And now just above Ed's head there, let's look over at Chainlink, ticker symbol LINK. Let's check out the market cap for this one. But first, my average is 2069. Feeling good about that number. I like it. Been doing a daily dollar DCA with it. But maybe I want to adjust that to a limit dip buy. Maybe I just want to be more aggressive with the ones down here, And so let's see the market cap, though. First stop, checking over here. We have Chainlink is number 13. The market cap is 9.1 billion. So let's paste that over here. And that did go down over the course of the past week. And now let's check out what the price was yesterday. Chainlink USD on Coinbase. So checking that out. The closing price yesterday on the 6th was 13,582. So 13,582. Down 34% on this one. But it is higher up on the list. But this is actually one that, I feel like there's more fundamental value in something like Chainlink than with Trump coin, the official Trump, not Trump coin. I don't know. And so maybe I want to leave a dollar daily DCA because I am down 34% on it. So yeah, maybe that's something to consider. Just leaving it there because maybe I don't get a dip buy, maybe it doesn't go lower. But let's look at the chart. Don't want to get ahead of myself. So we did pull back down to the 618 from this same, it's the same Fibonacci retracement from the low on the 7th or approximately over there to the highs that we hit in mid-May. The 618 is around $13.11. We hit a low on the 5th of $12.64. So what was my limit dip buy? Or I didn't have a limit, but just my dip level 14. That was definitely hit, although I didn't have an order placed. And so for Link, what would be the limit dip buy? That would be around $12. And so maybe what I do for something like that, is for something like this, I do $1 daily DCA. But then if it goes down to that level around 12, that's what I'm going to note here. I have an alert, and then that would alert me, hey, maybe keep doing the $1 DCAs, but then maybe do a $5 or $7 dip buy at 12. That seems reasonable. It doesn't seem irrational or unreasonable. It seems reasonable. It seems rational. So pull back to there. But then, down 34%, I think it's reasonable to still want to get my average down on a daily basis. So I think that's okay. But where could this go to the upside? I had it noted from last week as a trim level being 20. Do have the 100% extension to around 21, 26. But that is, of course, going to need to be adjusted because we did go to a lower level. And so that would be right around here, right around 20 still. So I'm actually going to leave the trim level still at 20. And I think that's fine. But yeah, I'm just going to do $1 daily DCA like with Link. I think that's fine. And then maybe I would do, a dip buy if it hits down there. So yeah, cool. I feel good about that. And now the next one is Stellar Lumens, or Stellar, ticker symbol XLM. This one, I've been doing a daily dollar DCA over the past week, and my average is 40 cents. And this is actually one that I'm kind of surprised that it's only 40 cents, because I remember this when I first got introduced to crypto back into 2017. Buying the top, regretted selling, I guess. But this is one that's very interesting. It's like, why is it only, 40 cents? It must have been really cheap back then. So that's something I'd like to actually look back on the chart to kind of explore that. But let's first look at the market cap, because this one seems like it's speculative, but it's, number 16. So it's pretty well established at 8 billion market cap. So I guess it's not that, makes me feel better about it. And let's just go over here. It did go up over the course of the past week. And if we look at the chart over here, XLM, US dollar on Coinbase, Stellar Lumens. So let's look at that. The closing price from June 6th was $26.2979. So 26, what number was that? $26.2979. $26.2979. Okay. Down 34%, just like Link. Dang it. And this one did retrace to breaking below the 50%. Looks like it's found support around the 618. That was a low on June 5th of 25.26 cents. And I have over here in my little notebook, dip by level 26.9. That was actually the high that day, corresponding with the 50% retracement. So that makes sense. And so I'm just going to add XLM to this. What's a dip by level? I would think that would actually be the yellow line here. And I'm going to adjust this just like I did with, I think it was Trump. We get the style, get this to be center. And we can see that the 618 is around 25 cents, 26 cents. What was the low over here again? 25 cents, 25 something. So let's say 25 cents. I think that's a reasonable dip by level. So that's okay. But I might want to do similar to what I'm doing with Link, because, comparing these market caps, Stellar 16, Chainlink 13, these are up there. I can have a little bit more confidence in them than some of the stuff further down here on the list. So yeah, I think $1 daily DCA, but if XLM does go lower, I don't know that I can have an alert in Webull with this. but I will put that there if I can, question mark. I had put a question mark by link. I know I can have an alert on that. So yeah, now what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about XLM. Where could this go? Assuming that the bottom is in. And so assuming that the bottom was in last week, which it was not, that would have suggested price going up to around 39 cents. And I had, a trim level at 41 cents. Why did I pick that? I imagine it's because that's what my average was. But now my average is XLM 40 cents. It did get that down by a penny, so that's good. So I would say, yeah, a trim level, just, managing risk, 40 cents. That seems reasonable. But I'm going to then lower this because we did get to a lower low over here. And that's around 38.6566 cents, something around there. Okay, there's something. But then, yeah, I just really wanted to look at this over the course of, where it's been in the past. So when I was introduced to it, it was up here. And it was only making lower highs. So I guess it's good that I sold. I had rolled it into ETH, and then I sold ETH when it was rallying up here at break even, basically. I should have held longer. But yeah, this has been putting in lower highs, so maybe don't have so much confidence that it's going to be getting back to those levels. I don't know. But yeah, this is not necessarily one to hold for the long term. So yeah, I think that's fine for, daily DCA of $1. I feel okay with that. But now we're getting into the more speculative stuff. So below or above Ed's head, just moving this up now so we can see the rest of them. Pepe, ticker symbol Pepe. My average, it looks like it's 4 zeros and an 18. Have been doing the dollar daily DCA over the past week. Let's look at that market cap, though. Pepe, number 27. That is 4.8 billion. Crazy. Because it's Pepe. It's just a stupid little meme. Gotta have fun, though. It's all about having fun. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Pepe is an example of having fun. Same with Doge. Gotta just be, do only good every day. I don't know what Pepe stands for, but it's not do only good every day, and that's why I've got more Doge. But having fun with it, as always, Pepe, US dollar, Coinbase. This is actually, performed pretty well from that low to the high here. We do see it testing the 50% retracement, but maybe this could go lower. The level that I had denoted for the dip buy was 4 zeros and an 11. And I didn't even put the number over here, so I gotta do that. So the closing price for June 6th was 4 zeros, 10.56. So that level I was talking about got hit. 4 zeros and 11 definitely got hit. Down 40% on this. This could be going lower. Got the 50% level, 618 at 5 zeros and a 949. Maybe we don't go down that low, though. I do think that would be acting as notable support here with tops here. It could be some beefy support. So I'd actually say, I had said 4 zeros and 11. I'm going to say 4 zeros and a 1. Just 1 0. So I think that could be a dip buy level. But yeah, with being down 40% on it, I think I'm still just going to do the dollar daily DCA because if that limit doesn't get hit, I'll want that. I'll want that dip. And yeah, but now seeing that this has formed lower lows here, although it is higher lows relative to over here, we do have this 100% extension. I do have to adjust to the downside, but that was to around 4 zeros and a 22. I have denoted here 4 zeros and a 2. If I do adjust this to the low that we saw on the 5th, we then see it at still around 4 zeros and a 22, 4 zeros and 21. I might just do 4 zeros and a 2. I think that's reasonable. That would be a trim level. And let's see. I don't know that there's anything else I really need to add about that. But yeah, I mean, if this does come down to like 4 zeros and a 1, then I'd probably just do a dip buy and then maybe forget the rest of the week's daily DCAs. So yeah, so I'll probably just leave that. That's fine. And yeah, the next one on the list, this is perhaps one that I'm kind of sad about. I wasn't daily DCAing last week. My dip buy was not filled, and this is Aave, ticker symbol AAVE. My average is around 278. Wait, actually, no, not Aave. Sorry, the next one on the list is going to be Uniswap, ticker symbol UNI. This is one that I was daily dollar cost averaging into $1 a day. My average is around $11.22. But let's look over at that market cap just below Pepe at number 29. So there's something between them. But on my list of favorites, my watch list is 29, just below $4 billion market cap. And so let's put that number here. And that actually went up a little bit. So from last week, it was Uniswap was around 3.8 billion. Now it's around 3.9 billion. But let's check out that price though. Uniswap USD on Coinbase. Okay. Let's check out that closing price from Friday, June 6th. 5994. 5994. Down 47%. Dang. And so the dip buy level I was talking about last week was 612. We clearly hit that. I should have been patient. Should have been waiting for that dip buy. We did pull back to, let's see, that is corresponding with this second high here. We did pull back to the 50% at $6.11, 612, corresponding with, But then I'd say, 575 would be the next one at the 618. So I'm going to note that 575 as the next dip level to the downside. But, I'm so notably negative, might as well just do the daily DCAs. So I'll probably do that, But then let's look up to the upside. I have noted that a trim level is 1178, probably corresponding with my average, because over here I have it as like 887. So my average is 1122. So that would be my personal trim level, being honest with you. Just a trim. But over here, we got it around 887. But I can adjust that to be, at the lows. I actually don't know why. Oh, yeah, we haven't really pulled back. So that's actually, I'd leave that the same. Because that's just corresponding with that 618, the yellow line there. So that's fine. I'll just leave that. That's okay. Yeah, down 47%, so I'll just do the daily DCA. Super boring. But yeah. Okay, and so now let's look at Aave, ticker symbol AAVE. I had a dip buy, $7, did not come to my level. We'll talk about that level in a minute. But first, let's look at the market cap of Aave. This is one below Uniswap at number 30. And it's just shy of 4 billion. So let's copy that number over, paste it here. And we can see that also did go up over the past week. But now let's look at the Uniswap, Aave data here. And this is going to be Aave. I want US dollar on Coinbase, so that's good. This is actually looking really strong. Wow. Oh my gosh. Kind of crazy. So from this Fibonacci retracement, we have not retraced. I do have that lined up with the top over there, lower highs, but this is just looking phenomenal in all honesty. And so what was the dip buy that I denoted from last week? 220. And so that was clearly not hit. what's the 220 correspond with? I actually had it at 218, but I bumped it up to 220. That corresponds with a 382 here. So I think I should still leave that as a dip by level. We got it, if we do retrace some, maybe we find some support there. Found it over here, support. Maybe it's support again. So 220, I think that's fine. But since I missed out, and actually before, I keep getting ahead of myself. June 6th, what was the close? 251.06. So 251.06. I'm down 10%. Dang it. Last week, what was I? Aave. I was down 10% again. So yeah, just because I missed out on a dip buy, I'm going to do a $1 DCA, but I'm going to leave that $7 limit dip buy as is. Because, I want to be getting my average down while it's lower. Where would I trim at, though? Looking at this, I have the 100% extension really with the assumption that it pulls back to the 382, which may not happen. So if it doesn't happen, then maybe that's not the level. But what I have for the trim level in my notes is 380. The 100% extension here is to 386.97. So 380 seems pretty reasonable, feasible. And then the pullback level that I had noted was 220. So I'm just going to note that in here, but I'm just going to do the daily DCA. Although I should note we do have lower highs here, lower highs in the RSI, so there's no bearish divergence there. And actually we do see height in the volume corresponding with the tops over here, cool off. So that does seem healthy. This could be a bull flag before the next move higher. So I think that's looking good. But, might as well get my average down, while I can. And so now the next one on the list, this is one that I have been adding to $1 a day, is Avalanche, ticker symbol AVAX. My average is around 23.47. I'm not down 100% because I need to populate the data over here. So let's first look at the market cap of Avalanche. It's number 14 on the list over here, $8.8 billion. And if I copy and paste that, we can see that it did go up over the past week. But let's check out that chart over here, AVAX. Want the US dollar Coinbase over here. And so the closing price, not getting ahead of myself, the closing price from June 6th was 1966. So let's add that here, 1966. Did go up over the course of the past week. I'm down 16%, so I think I'm fine to do that $1 DCA. And actually, it's kind of an interesting thing. Why don't I do limit dip buys for all of these? I'm intrigued by that. I might have to revisit that. I might have to think about that. But maybe just a $5, if I'm doing the $1. So I think that's interesting. Yeah, so I'll think about that. But yeah, thinking about Aave. No, I'm thinking about Avalanche. Sorry, I was looking at this yellow one. Down 16%, going to continue doing with that $1 DCA, daily DCA. But what's a limit, a dip buy level that it could come down to? And so we have come back to the 618, pierced that. That was at 1930. I had the limit, or not the limit dip buy, but the dip level, 2074, corresponding with the 50% level here. We did definitely break below that. And so now I would say that with it trading around 2078, I think that 1930, that's a nice, it's better than 2074. So 1930, let's just do 19. Let's do 19. Dip level. Seems reasonable. I'm not sure if I can have an alert on this, but I'll do that. Just note it. That is, let's see. I want to think about where it could go to the upside. This did go lower lows, but higher lows relative to the low from April 7th. This retracement here goes up to, the highs from over here. So that makes sense. But where could this go to the upside? The level that I have is this 100% extension, which I do need to adjust because we did go lower. That was at 31.35. I had the level marked at 30. If I do lower this to those lows, right around 30 still, so I think that's a reasonable level to trim at. So I think that's fine. And actually, Avalanche, I don't need to have an alert on that because it's all just in my Robinhood, so I can just have limits and stuff. And so yeah, 19 limit dip by maybe, and then $1 DCA. So I could do that. I think that's interesting. It's an interesting idea, but I'll come back to it. I'll revisit that once I've gone over the last one here, which is Loopring, just above Ed's head there. This is ticker symbol LRC. Super speculative. I have to be buying this through Uphold, as you can see right there. And so I would have to do $100 at once. It just seems a little too speculative for me. It's got a lower market cap. So that's why I haven't been adding. And so if we look at the market cap, 323, $114 million market cap. So if I paste this over here, has that gone up? It's actually gone down from last week. Was at 118. The week before was at 131. And at 147. So yeah, I mean, it's not, it just keeps going down. So I want to see higher lows with this in order to start thinking that, a bottom is in fact in. And so now I will do LRC, Loopring, and Loopring, US dollar on Coinbase. We have broken below that 786. Man, that's not looking so good, but it's still a higher low. So maybe that's good. So this white line going across here is at like 7.8 cents. But I first want to, before I get ahead of myself, get the close for June 6th, which was at 8.10 cents. So 8.10 cents. Dang, man. My average is at 19 cents. That's bad. Down 58% on that one. But so what's like a limit level, a dip buy level? 8 cents is what I had noted from last week. What was the low over here on April 9th? That was 7.57 cents. So I think that, for Loopring, 8 cents is reasonable. But that could be getting into lower low territory. So I think that seems a little bit risky. I'd want to see it put in a higher low and then start to put in a higher high. And that could be suggesting, hey, maybe now I can get aggressive. It seems to have shifted gears. Like here it was putting in higher lows, higher highs. But then when we broke these lows, it really started to come down. When it broke that trend, it started to come down. Risky in that sense. So yeah, 80 cents to the downside is what I could see. The upside here, I need to move this to be a little bit lower. That's around 13 cents to the upside. But like I said, my average is 19 cents. So that is where I would want to trim if I wanted to trim. So yeah, that's interesting. I'd want to see higher lows. Maybe that'll be the theme for next week's video. But yeah, not seeing it with Loopring, so I'm just going to leave that as an NA. And so now, I'm just going to go over a little bit of summary at the end. But before I do that, I guess a summary, just going over my percent P&L, what we can see, all of these over here, basically Uniswap in pink has been a pretty good performer. It's still negative, but it started out as like around negative. Ed's in the way, so I'm just going to have him step out of the way for a minute. Uniswap over here around negative 60%. Now I'm down about negative 47%. So it has been regaining its footing a little bit. Also same with Aave. Look at that. That's doesn't stand out because it's that lame lavender color. But that's, gone up a good amount there. Started out around 40% down. Now I'm down around 10%. So that's a really great performer. I've seen some go up and down, like look at Doge over there. It's the golden one with the circles, up and then down. And yeah, some of them have come down some. Loopring right here. That has just been a terrible performer. I have not been adding to it. It was down 45%. Now I'm down 58%. So not looking so great there, but maybe we start to see a rally soon. So yeah, just, putting that into perspective. But this all could just be a consolidation before, all of these take off to the next level up. So, that'll be an interesting video when that happens. But yeah, thinking about these, the ones that I have, these routine daily dip buys, let's think about them. Maybe I want to change them. To be something like this where I have a daily dip buy, but then also a limit buy if it does go lower. And so Ethereum Classic, the average is 17 cents. Maybe what I want to do is, Ethereum Classic. No, Ethereum Classic, 16.74 cents. Maybe what I want to do is have a limit dip buy for, for this one, Ethereum Classic, it's a little bit of an odd one because I'm just trying to get one a week, whether it's at $16 or $18, doesn't really matter. It's below my average. So I'm just going to leave that one at a $3 dip buy daily. I think that's fine. Ondo, I'd consider it. RLC, I'd consider it, but it's just a little too risky. I need to see higher lows forming with that. We do see that with Ondo, so that's why I was fine to buy this past week. Moving forward, maybe I consider doing that with RLC. And then, down here, Litecoin, Solana, I'm fine to just leave those as limit dip buys. That's fine. Limit dip buys. This one, $1. But what do I have for the dip buy level for Cardano? 60 cents. What's it trading at now? 65 cents. So maybe what I want to do for Cardano is do like a $1 and then a $7 dip buy. That seems reasonable. 60 cents. So let's make all of that yellow. Okay. But maybe I should check, as I'm doing this, what is the current price of Cardano? I know I just went over it, but I don't remember. 60.6 cents. So yeah, there would be a dip buy filled, and then if that gets filled at 7, then I'd, chill out. So that's fine. And yeah, so I think that's good. Trump, I think it's fine. Just limit dip buy. That's fine. It's higher up on the list here. So I need to get them up there, compete with it a little bit. And then I could do daily dollar DCAs. But I do have it placed now, so I do need to pay attention to that. Remove that daily dollar DCA, and then just have that limit buy. And then so the next one on the list is Link. I have dollar DCAs posted, but I have a limit, a dip buy add level at 12. And so let's see, what is the current price of Link. Just want to make sure it's a limit dip buy. US dollar here. So it's above 12, so that would be a limit dip buy. And so for Link, I do have a $1 there, so I'm just going to do this. But then, I'll just do $5 for it. I don't need to be super aggressive. I think it's fine. Pepe, probably going to be a similar boat. What do I have for Pepe? Oh, 4 1s and an O. 4 O's and a 1. So let's look over here. Pepe US dollar on Coinbase. It's above that. So yeah, and that'd be coming down to like here. So yeah, I think that's a fine strategy for that. XLM. Let's just look at that one real quick. XLM, US dollar. There we go. My limit or my add level be 25 cents. It's currently trading above 25 cents. So yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. Wait, XLM. XLM, I already did XLM. What am I doing? Did I just have Pepe up there? I have no idea. I get confused looking at all this stuff. XLM, I was talking about limited by 25 cents. It's below that. Pepe, I went out of order, but yeah, same idea. I approve of both of those. And then the next one, Uniswap, the dip buy level is 575. Uniswap. US dollar, Coinbase, 575. It's above that. So I think that's reasonable. And then if these limit dip buys get filled and I've had two $1 buys, then that's $7 for the course of the week. And then I can maybe just lay off in the $1 dip buys. Or maybe I just continue them. I guess I'd reevaluate that. And then also kind of the same idea with Avalanche. 1966 with the close, below my low, but below my average. 1966 though, AVAX, market cap, US dollar on Coinbase. That could happen. And so, yeah, and actually thinking about these, I think they're all fine. I approve of all of this. I think, yeah, I mean, I feel okay with these. It's just that I'm going to have to do like daily tracking. So like Bitcoin is with Strike. That's at a different time than Robinhood. So that's fine. But then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 that I'd have to update on Robinhood. So I don't really like that. And so maybe what I could do, Ethereum Classic, high up there, speculative, $3 DCA. Maybe I want to change that. And what am I thinking that Ethereum Classic could pull back to? 16. Ethereum Classic, US dollar, Coinbase. It's above 16. So yeah, I'll just do a limit dip buy. But for Ethereum Classic, kind of following the strategy that I had, I'll do a $16 dip buy. And then that's one less that I have to pay attention to. With Doge, I mean, I just like Doge, so I'm going to keep doing that $1 DCA. Let's see, XRP, and because I didn't even get that fill, that $7 fill, so I want to do that. But Cardano is lower than XRP. So maybe I just want to chill with that. Yep, I think that, I kind of need to be a little bit better. I feel better about these three, Solana, XRP, and Cardano, than I do with these. So maybe what I want to do is, like with Trump, just do that, but also with Link, with that level. Maybe also with XLM, with that level. And then maybe also, that's 34. But yeah, I mean, I cannot add, and it goes up to, 10%, down 10%. So, Pepe, yeah. And then this one down 40%. So I should be doing a daily DCA with Uniswap. Aave, I haven't done that, so I think that's good. Avalanche is easy for me to trim because it's just on Robinhood, so I think that's fine. But then yeah, I mean, 40% downside Pepe. But yeah, I mean, it's Pepe. I just got to have fun with it. And if I'm doing a daily dollar DCA, it's not as fun. And I should reserve that more for, these ones. So then I will be doing updates in Robinhood of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Less than 10. I think that's reasonable. So that's kind of what I'm going to go with for this week. And I think that's fine. I think that's reasonable. Don't want to be going too crazy. And then the ones that, these are exceptions. Actually, if these are exceptions, Doge isn't. Oh, yeah, because that did get filled last week, that $5 one. So I'll just make that a $7 one. Because I like Doge. It's fun. And so the fun ones, Doge, that I have high conviction in, and the ones that are maybe not as fun, but I have higher conviction in, those are $7 dip buys. Litecoin, $7 dip buy. I think that should probably be, it's a $7 dip buy, so I'm not doing daily DCAs. These are on top of daily DCAs. And the ones down here, daily DCAs, Aave, that's already placed, so I'm not going to mess with it. That's the justification there. So I think it's fine. I think it's reasonable. That's the goal, to be reasonable. And that's really, basically the summary here. So just going to come back to my thesis, bring Ed back. So together we can say, or maybe I'll just say it because it's weird otherwise. As always, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more weekly Crypto Corner Sat stackers and daily videos on the market, getting ready for pre-market prep or overnight market prep, and occasionally take a request live on Sunday. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if it was, and if not, it's helpful for me, and I'm fine if people don't watch. But hopefully it does add value, and hopefully the ticker timestamps down below are helpful for you. But yeah, take care. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather. If it's nice out where you are, it's a little bit rainy here where I am, where it's about to be, but I plan to enjoy it. Otherwise, take care, you guys, and I will see you later. Bye.